Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're talking about something really crucial for teenagers. It's that connection with their parents. You can almost call it a lifeline,
Right.
especially during those tricky adolescent years. What role does that family bond really play? Well, it turns out it's maybe even bigger than we think.
That's absolutely right. We're going to unpack how these strong family ties aren't just, well, nice to have. They're actually a really key factor for a teen's overall health, and they really help reduce risky behaviors. We're focusing on this idea of connectedness.
Connectedness, okay.
Yeah, that feeling of being loved, heard, understood in your family. And the effects are surprisingly wide-ranging, impacting everything from, mental health to how well they do in school.
Yeah, and this feels particularly timely, doesn't it? Especially when you look at the CDC's latest youth risk behavior survey. The 2023 data, it showed that around 40% of high school students felt persistently sad or hopeless. That's a huge number.
It really is.
And 20% had seriously thought about suicide, and nearly 1 in 10 had actually attempted it. These numbers, they really highlight the struggles young people are facing.
They absolutely do. But, and this is important, within those same results, there's some really good news. It turns out that feeling connected to family acts as a really significant protective buffer.
A buffer, okay, I like that. It suggests it can shield them somewhat.
Exactly. It can help them navigate these tough times.
Okay, so let's dig into this a bit more. What does the science actually say about this connectedness and its real-world impact?
Well, there's a really strong study from the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. It was published in JAMA Network Open. And the key thing here is it wasn't just a quick look. They followed over 15,000 adolescents for more than a decade.
Wow, okay. Over 15,000 kids for 10 years. That's some serious data. What did they find?
The main takeaway was pretty powerful, actually. Adolescents who said they had strong relationships with their parents throughout their teens generally had better long-term health outcomes when they became young adults.
Better health. What did that look like specifically? What aspects were they measuring?
So the researchers looked at specific things in the parent-teen relationship. Things like parental warmth, showing affection, support, also the quality of their communication,
Right.
how much time they actually spent together, and even things like parents' expectations about school. Then they tracked how these things lined up with different outcomes later in life.
And the connection was clear.
Very clear, yeah. Those teens who felt more warmth, communicated better with their parents, spent quality time together, they were more likely later on to report being in better general health, feeling more optimistic.
Okay.
And they also showed fewer signs of stress and fewer depressive symptoms. It really suggests that having that consistent positive support during those key years builds a kind of foundation for well-being.
That makes a lot of sense for emotional health, but didn't the study look beyond just feelings?
It did, yeah. Strong parent-teen relationships were also linked to a lower chance of nicotine dependence later, lower rates of substance abuse, and even lower odds of unintended pregnancy.
Huh.
What's really striking is just how broad the impact seems to be. It's not just about their mood. It touches on physical choices.
That's quite a range of effects. Did the study consider different family situations, like different backgrounds?
Yes, they were careful about that.
Yeah.
They looked at relationships with both moms and dads or father figures living in the house. And importantly, they adjusted for factors like the teen's age, race, ethnicity, family structure, things like that.
Right, so trying to isolate the effect of the connection itself.
Exactly. It gives us more confidence that these relationships themselves are playing a really crucial role.
Okay, so the benefits are pretty clear from the research. Now, for people listening, parents, caregivers, what are some, practical ways to actually build this closeness, this connectedness?
Right, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the good news is there are lots of things families can do, often simple things. Think about maybe starting a regular family fun night. Once a week, maybe.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be complicated. Board games, cooking something together, watching a movie. The key is it's just time to enjoy being together.
Yeah.
No pressure, no lessons, just connection.
I like that, taking the pressure off, just, being together.
Exactly. And it's not just about planned events either. Even the everyday routines can become chances to bond if you're really present. Like maybe you already take a walk on Saturday mornings. Or when your kid asks for help with homework, see it as a chance to connect, not just, check a box.
There was that lovely story in our notes, the father and daughter with the late night secret snack. Can you tell us about that one?
Oh, yeah, that's such a great example of how small, informal moments can be huge. Apparently, late at night, after the younger kids were asleep, This dad and his teenage daughter would sneak into the kitchen just for a quiet snack and a chat. It became their special time, uninterrupted, just to share things, laugh. It really shows how those consistent little rituals can mean so much.
It really does, and it kind of highlights how important it is to show real interest in their world, right? That their friends, what they're into, even if their music seems weird to us.
Absolutely. Asking about their world shows you value what mattered to them.
Mm.
And at the same time, maybe being a bit open yourself,
Mm.
sharing your own stuff, your feelings sometimes when it feels right, of course. That kind of vulnerability can actually encourage them to open up too.
It models it for them,
Exactly.
and it feels so important to value them for just who they are, not just what they achieve.
Oh, totally. Saying things like, I'm really proud of how you handled that tricky situation with your friend,
Mm.
or I love hearing your ideas about this, showing pride in their character, their kindness, their thoughts, that hits differently. It tells them your love isn't just tied to their grades or scores.
Yeah. Okay, but let's be real. Even in the best families, there are going to be disagreements. Fights happen, especially with teens pushing for independence. How can parents handle those moments without, wrecking that connection?
That's such a critical point. And it really boils down to respect, even when you disagree.
Hmm.
Trying hard not to yell, definitely not withdrawing affection, that can be really damaging.
Yeah.
There was one example of a mom who, after an argument with her son, would make a point to text him later.
Oh, yeah.
Just a simple, I love you. Even if things were still a bit tense, it was her way of saying, hey, we disagreed, but the love is still here. It's solid.
Wow, that's small, but sounds really powerful.
It really can be. And sometimes just a simple message like, look, I know you're upset right now and that's okay. I'm here when you want to talk.
Yeah.
That could be way better than trying to force a resolution right away.
Uh,
It gives them space, but keeps the door open.
Right. Space, but connection.
Exactly.
So if we kind of pull all this together, what's the main takeaway about this protective shield that family connection offers?
I think the core message is that feeling truly connected to your family acts like a really strong protective factor for teenagers. When they feel secure and loved at home, they're genuinely less likely to look for validation in risky places or act out in risky ways. They have that safe harbor, that foundation.
Because they know someone's got their back.
Precisely. They're more likely to actually turn to their family when they hit a rough patch because they trust that someone there cares and will help them through it. And that's why making an effort to carve out those little moments of connection every day really matters.
Mm-hmm.
Helping with dinner, a quick hug when they get home from school, even just looking at old photos together and laughing.
Yeah, it's like you're building up this bank account of positive experiences,
You're
right? That trust, those good memories they can draw on later.
You've got it. And the CDC actually echoes a lot of this in their official recommendations for supporting teen mental health. They really stress how important open, honest communication is, talking about values, beliefs,
Right. Not just surface stuff.
not just surface stuff. And they also talk about parental supervision, not in a spying way, but being aware and helping guide healthy choices.
Okay.
And of course, spending that quality time together, doing shared activities, that strengthens the bonds. The CDC also mentions being involved in their school life, helping with homework if needed, maybe volunteering sometimes, staying in touch with teachers. It just sends that consistent message. I'm here. I support you across the board.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, the message seems incredibly clear. Building and maintaining that strong parent-teen connection isn't just, a nice to have. It really is like that lifeline we talked about at the start. It has these deep, lasting impacts on a teen's whole well-being, their mental health, their physical health, the decisions they make.
Absolutely. And the encouraging part is that it often comes down to those practical everyday efforts. The family game nights, yes, but also just the regular check-ins, showing love even when they seem prickly or distant. These are the things that build that vital connection. Small, consistent actions really can add up to make a huge difference.
So maybe a final thought for you listening today. Think about one small, deliberate thing you could do this week. Just one action to maybe strengthen that connection with a teenager in your life. It doesn't have to be huge. But what might the long-term ripple effect be from just those small moments of warmth, of real connection? Definitely something to mull over. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.